Okay, so welcome to you both. Welcome to, was it week 10, week 11? It's only week 10, isn't it? Joy, oh joy. So I can see a few people have already submitted their assignments, so that's always a good sign. Or one part of frustration was like, you know what, I've had enough, I'm just submitting it. That can be true too, but that's okay. And then other people I know are very busy with mechatronics residential schools, so that's fine too. But the key thing, of course, is that it is week 10. We haven't got much more to go. The last 2 weeks, we've got some new topics, and there's a lot of stuff. But again, as I say, I'll steer and guide you with that, so don't lose sleep over it. And then, obviously, in week 12, when we talk about the exam, we'll clarify some more things for you. All right, so let's let me just put that over there, and let me go and share the Moodle site, and that's up. All right, so good. Hopefully, you can see that, because sometimes in my state of the morning or I've got the flu at the moment. I had a session the other day with the maths people, and I'm raving on. About 10 minutes in, and somebody else joined, and then they suddenly went, Patrick, what are you talking about? Is it on the screen? I thought, oh, right. So I always check. Okay, so as always, let's go and have a look at our, our session for this week. Now, this session, when I went back and looked at this to redevelop it, yeah, it's a fun one in terms of pretty much. Sorry, let me go and put that on full screen, and let me see if I can get that out of the way a little bit. Yeah, as I say, when you look at this, there's a whole range of different techniques. So the game it's only an introductory unit. The book does talk about other techniques as well, and that's very interesting and all very good. And of course, it just depends on what gets further developed and then what gets picked on in other units. And even when you look at our course structure, sometimes some of this stuff is kind of getting introduced to an introductory unit, and then it's stopping. So, you know, so apologies for the frustration. But the reality
Patrick,
is that,
sorry, back when I did analog, Pete did introduce us to PID controls.
Yeah.
So that was back in analog a couple of years ago for me, that they're touching on that in that subject. So
good. We've had some changes since then, so sometimes it takes a while to match up again. But yeah, no, that's good. So I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, you can always learn more. There's always different techniques and things like that. So what I've tried to do is, for a couple of the sections, is just concentrate on one specific thing to give you some insights. And then, of course, if you went and learned another one, obviously it's going to be completely different and a whole range of things, perhaps. But also what happens is that you well know, when you get out in industry, sometimes a particular discipline, a particular industry even, power or control kind of systems, or you know, electrical in a general context, they really just focus on they find it very interesting. You know, our education tries to do this for you, and then once you get into an industry job, no disrespect, that's the job. If you're in the gas industry doing, you know, control systems, well, that's what you're doing, you know. So the point of the matter is that you get dedicated to a particular enculturation of a particular system, and as you well know, they'll dedicate to a particular PLC, for argument's sake. So therefore, then you're really only getting experience in a narrow field. That's what happens. You know, that's really what happens. So in this case, I just went through and had a look at compensation, looking at just concentrating on the steady state error. Why? Well, to me, my thinking was that the steady state error basically says to you, hey, listen, I've designed the system to do this, and then if it's tracking off it, as you well know, the steady state error just gives you some sort of measure about how far are you tracking off it and stuff like that. So to me, it was kind of like a, not an obvious, well, an obvious, more intuitive in terms of, like, if something's going wrong, you can say, okay, well, it's obviously drifting. Some other systems, that's not necessarily so evident. And again, there's more than just cascade. So, and it's very mathematical. And I find the textbook, again, I'm going to flex through, but I find with the textbook, it goes, oh, here we go, this is a nice system. Oh, we want to do this with this. What we're going to do is plug this in here, and that'll compensate that, and that'll drop that out. And you go, oh, okay, right. And then they go, right, of course, here's the solution. And like in a page and a half, you go, oh, okay. So when I started to doing this and deconstructing it, I went, oh, right, oh, how do you do that? Oh, okay, how do you do that? So basically, it talks about types of systems, and all they're doing is talking about, okay, if I can increase from type 0 kind of to a type 1, then my error basically drops out. So that's the crux of it. You know, nice, but the point is, how do you do that? So as you go through, you'll see that the mathematics just It's not difficult mathematics, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's not really well explained. And I can tell you now that this particular section took me, I'd already had it there, but it was introduced the digital part as well. But even the analog was kind of glossed over. So I just try to make it a little bit more, well, not meaty, but a little bit more hopefully understandable in the context of where the numbers came from. And even very quickly, I found that the resources, this is a pretty good textbook. This textbook's been around quite a while, and as I said, I've been using it for like 10, 15 years or something. But even finding stuff online to do with the textbook, because it's a textbook, and also I've had relationships with publishers myself writing for textbooks. And the point of the matter is that they're very, I don't know, they're just very insular. In the context that, as you see my full solutions, I could never write that as a book. I could self-publish it, but if I took that to a publisher, they'd go, "Are you crazy?" Like that's, if I took all your study notes for the 11 weeks and made that into a textbook, they wouldn't print it, because the reality is that it's too many pages. Sounds weird, but the reality is they're very into putting stuff online, which is fine. And even then, I'm doing some work for a publisher at the moment, and I've done up big solutions like I'm talking about, and they're going, "Oh yeah, that's great. What's the answer?" Because what they want to be able to do is just put the answer, and you think, that's not how education works. I like to explain stuff to people. I want people to be able to understand it so they can use it. It's just really, and then they go, "Oh well, yeah, we could put that over there, like on a website." And I know myself, this textbook, I've got one arrived the other day, a new version, and I know you've got like like the ebook version. And I know myself, even when I was trying to figure this out, they'd say, "Oh, go and press on the MATLAB program," and I'd go, "Okay," so I'd run it, and I'd go, "The answer is 42." How'd you get 42? How'd you get it? So this this took me a while to basically deconstruct, and I just thought to myself, that's just one compensation system. So as I say, I just go through. The nice thing, I suppose, in some ways, I've tried where I can to say, "Hey, listen, we've done this kind of stuff before. It's just that. It's just the characteristic equation. Here's something about the compensation angle." And then, as I say, I had to decipher. So this is my deciphering of all this stuff. And then easily on the internet, you'll find this stuff, and it goes, "Yeah, there you go, that's it." And then my original chapter, I did have already this in it, and it deciphers the angular changes, etc., etc. And then, as I say, this is kind of something I did about 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So all that I understood, I went, "Yeah, okay, I understand all that." But can you see what I mean? Like, it really is just about some angles, but the reality is that the crunching of it is quite detailed. Blah blah. So you go all the way down. And you go, "Oh, fantastic! I've got an answer to 4 decimal places. It's great." And then, of course, the textbook is not working to my decimal places; it's working to its own decimal places. So when I got the answer, I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." And you'll find that too. It just doesn't match up. So therefore, then when I was doing it, I thought, "Oh, well, okay, I haven't done too badly." So I think I've got the theory right. But again, I just tried to make sure that my numbers work. So I just tested it again with the text. And again, a lot of that you've already done, so that's nothing new to you. It's just, crunching. And then again, adding the zero and the pole and getting all that kind of stuff. Really, all you're doing it's a fudge factor. All you're doing is saying, "Hey, listen, the system's becoming really uncontrollable. How do I stop that from happening? Oh, I'll compensate it. How do I compensate it? Well, I've got that thing over there is the spike that's causing the spike to occur. So you go, how can I dampen down that spike? Oh, I just go and I'll go and put that there. And that's the nature of it. It quietens the system down and counteracts it. So therefore, then everything goes, okay, it runs along smoothly. And that's really what you're doing. And then where do you put that is based on the characteristics of the system itself, plus what you're trying to do with the system. So yeah, as I say, you get these nice diagrams. You go, "Oh, that's great. How'd you get that answer there?" And then you've got to figure it out. And then even the conditions, again, control systems, when they first started control systems, back in Egypt, and you've got, levers and stuff like that. You had to stop these things from rolling back on you and crushing, all the slaves. You'd have to have some sort of system to stop that from rolling. But likewise in the steam, the 1700s, when Watt and Stevenson and all those guys got working, they put compensators on those steam engines. And you'll see things spinning and that type of thing, and it basically allows off some steam so the pressure doesn't build up too much. So compensators have been around a long time. So when you see these things like 5 times or it's 67, like a third of it, you know, like we did with the decay curves, that kind of thing. It's like a third, or the other way around, 67% of it or something like that. They were kind of rules of thumb because they worked. So when they were doing the steam engine and they did a compensator, so they basically said, oh, okay, if I get this thing to spin and basically allow the valve to open and let a bit of steam out, oh, that seems to work, that's great. And then over time people went, oh yeah, it's about a third, yeah, that looks good. So when they moved on from the mechanical kind of control systems into electrical control systems, and then onto electronic control systems, some of those things just kind of carried through. They carried through because of the nature of the control itself, the mathematical basis of it, the modeling that was occurring, and the systems themselves, because as you know, some mechanical systems can become electromechanical systems, so therefore then it's going to carry those characteristics. So as I say, sometimes you think, oh, why does it fit into that category? Well, as I say, it's just an approximation. So all these fancy numbers, and then there's your compensator. Again, as I say, you get this nice little curve occurring. You think, oh, there's the underlying mathematics. That's great. Yeah, fair enough. And then, as I say, you do all the crunching and you get, sorry, that's the answer. That's all it is. Seriously? But that's what it is. And then play around with it a bit more. And then ultimately, you know, sorry, you mean this is the compensated one and this is the uncompensated one? Seriously? Is that like, there's not a lot of compensation there, let's be honest. You know, you've got the system going, and that's what I'm talking about, the tracking, you know, so you want it to do this. And it's going, yeah, tracking very well. And then, oh, okay, it's tracking so badly, I'm going to compensate it. Really? Yeah, it's doing pretty well back here, isn't it? So as I say, it's just an exercise. And you know, the frustration is that for all that exercise, that's the difference. That's the difference in how much I had to compensate it. So hang in there. So then when you actually do a comparison, and you think, oh, okay, let's look at it. And look, we're talking seriously, like we're in with, you know, 2%, 10% or something. But anyway, it's the principles. Just keep that in mind. And what you'll find is that I don't expect you to go back through all of that again for this unit. It's an introduction unit. So it's to say to you, hey, listen, that's how it works. And then the digital one, and again, as always, you've got to transfer across. So digital, blah, blah, blah. So again, they've got little fiddle factors, transitions. And again, as you can see, as you've already seen with a lot of that digital stuff, there's a lot of mucking around algebra. There's some similarities with the, you know, the Z minus one on the Z and that type of stuff. So there is some characteristics there that you can use as your signpost, if you like, to sort of say, oh, okay, you know, I'm on the right track because now I've got to this part. Oh, I've got to have a Z minus one and a Z there somewhere. So the systems I've been giving you, it sort of triggers you to sort of say, oh, I can cancel those out. And suddenly it drops from being an order 4 down to an order 3 or something like that. Again, blah, blah. So again, I'm trying to set it out exactly the same way we've done it before, so kind of at least, you know, you don't get lost in the nonsense of the compensation part of it. It's all the same process, all the same process. Blah 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 blah. All down here, all the way down, and then again. There you go. So it tracks nicely. So again, so the key thing I take away from it is that the key thing is that there's these compensation systems that can work. And what you'll find is that because of your particular industry, A, the industry, and then B, particularly the type of job you're doing. As I say, if it's in the electrical industry and you're doing power generation, well, you've got compensators and stuff like that. If it's in the actual substation, then those systems are going to have particular possible compensation systems. And then if you're out there on the field, on the pole or something, or if you're in a distribution for a smaller, like a town, or for even like a manufacturer or something like that, there's going to be differences there. So whatever it is you're going to be trained to do whatever the specific thing is. And then if you're in an organization that's a bit like a contractor that's an analyzing design person, well, again, you'll have a repertoire, a toolbox of things, and you know there'll only be 3, 4 of them. There won't be many. So in that context, just keep it in mind that they are these things called compensation techniques that you can use. Now, if we have a look at the chute questions, again, as I say, you might think I've been sorry, just got to put that out of that. Oops. Sorry, stop sharing for a minute, and I'll just get back to my middle slide. There we go. It does weird things. So if I just go back up here. And I won't forget, I will share in a minute. I'll just go to tutorials. We're looking at the questions. then of course, if I go back to there, go back to here, sharing that. What you'll find, of course, is, look, there's only 2 questions. Because again, you know, as I say, to go and do that amount of analysis does take a while. It's more than even the root locus diagrams. And the other point of the matter is that when you look at the 2 questions I've given you, they're basically at the tail end, or they're an application of that, because I just wanted to try and extend it a bit as well. And there's only 2 questions because welcome to week 10. We all have to get our lives back. So the point is that, you know, as I say, this is my unit. It's a very important unit. You should know everything about it. But the point of that is I'm kind of realistic that by week 10, you're thinking, oh, I think there's week 11, 12, and I think I'll make it. So again, it's just to give you some introductory things to one's an analog, one's a digital. So that's fine. Talk to me. So if we go and look at the solutions now, you'll see that it's not doing all the stuff I did in the lecture. So it's a slightly, if I go to the right page, it might be good. There we go. So again, there's always some design parameters of some sort, and as you see, you're going to get sick of seeing damping ratio, time constant, steady state error, that type of stuff. So in this one, you're not doing all that analysis that I've done to get you to the compensation. This is now saying, hey, listen, I've got a system and I'm looking at what's happening to it. So again, some of these features you've already seen. Again, it's slightly different. So it's again, just trying to add a little bit to it. And again, even figuring this stuff out, you know, it's just like, how did you get you know, 4.3 or something? And again, see that underlying stuff keeps coming back. So you get some values again. So you're able to calculate, yeah, basically get it all. So that's just showing you that's compensated. And again, just as Bradley was saying, this is a PI controller, PID controller. So it's again just something that it's conscious raising in some way. So for this particular week, as I say, have a good look through it. Don't lose sleep over it. Just be comfortable with it. It's the kind of thing I'm not going to put on the exam, and I'll say that again next week when we're talking, because it is something that I'll check back. I don't think I did. We'll see anyway. As I say, I'll cycle through and I'll alert you to any concerns. Probably have a talk in week.
Never know what you're going to get for an assessment from you, Patrick.
Oh well, as I say, it's a good way to keep people awake. And I just know myself too. I don't know if you know, but what happens is that by week 4 we have to have the exam set. So the frustration is that it's like, hey, it's week 10. What the hell did I put in that exam? So yes, and obviously I did change things. So again, for the digital one, I've tried to mirror it a bit, so it's kind of a similar idea. Some basic calculations, and again, as you know, the basic calculations take you 3.5 pages because it's all the funny little z's, and then you just come up with a little function. So, you know, some of these things look quite complicated, but the reality is that, you know, they're quite neat in lots of ways. But anyway, so all right, so keep that in mind. Don't lose sleep over it, and don't be super concerned about it. So if I go back. Yep, so that should continue with that. So again, the take-home message with that is have a look through it, and it's a bit like, as I say, the steady state week. It's a bit like it's more like the block algebra week. Interesting to look at, yeah, but do not spend hours trying to figure it. I mean, read through it. Don't get me wrong, but don't spend hours trying to replicate it. Just have it in your mind that okay, that's what happens there. And as I say, I'll give you a warning of if there is a compensation type question. I have had compensation questions on the exam previously, and they are not the lecture type analysis. They're more of the tude question type analysis. So even if you did have a compensation question on it, it's going to be about it's going to look like the tude questions basically. So if you like, I'm going to narrow it down. So that's the lecture. That's the tude. What about the, we've got an assignment, haven't we? What's that assignment about? Let's go and do it. What's that assignment about? Oh, just share that again. Assignment 2, assessment. Assignments. Assignment 2. Now I'm talking to people that's been, well, heartening. That's always heartening. To hear people going, oh, you know, I've been fixing this up, and yes, I've understood what you're talking about now. That's good. That's good. That's a good sign. It's always a good sign. So you say that now, and instead of week 14. So the point is that people have been trying to really improve on their assignment too, which is great. That's really what it's all about. I'm trying to make sure that you come out the other side comfortably and everything like that. So, and then there's other things like, oh, that turns out to be a fourth order system. Oh my God, you might have got to go and find the roots of fourth order system. And then obviously, if you've looked at the tutes and looked at the lectures, it's got very fine print. I guess obviously it's a bit small, but it says to you if it's a fourth order system, go and use Wolfram Alpha or something like that, and you can use the roots. As long as you cut and paste that bit, that's fine. Anything below that, of course, you should be able to do. So there's that. That'll save you some headaches. But as you're quite conscious, both these problems are ones that take basically, slightly exaggerating, 20 pages each to solve, because they are, you know, they are jigsaw puzzles. You know, they're little bits. You go, oh, I've done all this and I got 42 for the answer. I've done all this and I got 25 for that. And okay, so then yeah, so you're well aware as you go through. So people have been checking, which has been really good, and I'm very happy to do. You know, they've sort of got like halfway through this stage, you went, oh, something's wrong, and that's good. That, to me, that's great, because if you can sense that something's wrong, that's great. That's part of the process. You may not know what's wrong. That's fine too. All this comes at time. So in talking to people that've gone sort of show me, you know, 2 pages or something, and I've sort of went, you know, if you go back to page 3, you've actually, it's an algebra problem. It's not an understanding problem. It's mostly an algebra problem. You know, they've done something funny. So that's right. And again, as I say, for me to spend 10 minutes doing that, half an hour to do it, whatever the case may be, because sometimes I have to decipher what you've done. But the reality to me is that, you know, I want you to do as best you can, and it's silly if you're not getting a good go on, you know, a 20-page solution because you've lost something in the first half page. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's fine. And then, as I say, it's not, I'm not spoon feeding you, and I'm not giving it to you. You obviously, as you're well aware, you've got to work to get it done and come through. So most people are, again, because people are busy with other things. I know it's Thursday. It's Thursday, and I'm getting questions about, you know, question 1, part 1 at the moment, and that's fine, because obviously people have been so busy they haven't got to it. Other people have already handed it in, which is fine, because they've been, you know, juggling things. So that doesn't matter. That's not what the point. The point is that please, even if it's like, you know, tomorrow is Friday, if you've got a question tomorrow, obviously ask me. The other key thing, of course, is that, as I gave you a warning about 2 weeks ago, if you want an extension, that's no dramas. Do it today though, because obviously Fridays I'm a bit hard to find, and also I'm marking 2 other assignments at the moment for 2 other units, so I'm slowly going crazy. But more than happy to give you some, you know, some breath just to help you get along there. So don't hesitate to ask is the key thing. And then I gave some hints last week about this, the third part. That was fine. The estimated percentage of overshoot with complex determined dominant. So, yeah, basically just looking at concentrating on the complex roots there rather than, there are real roots, and you know from now that obviously if that's a fourth power, that has 4 roots. And as I said, sometimes what happens is that, you know, if you've got 2 real roots that are the same, well, you've still got 4 roots. It just happens to be that, you know, 2 of them are the same. In this case here, you will have 4 roots. And again, you should always smile. If you get a complex conjugate, you'll get some complex ones. And as long as they're complex conjugate, you just throw your hands up in the air, not in frustration, but that, you know, you basically should be happy, because that's a good sign. And there will be some real ones. And as I was saying last week, why do we concentrate on the complex ones? Well, basically, the real ones will have a ripple effect on the system, but the complex ones are going to have the tsunami. So basically, concentrate on those. Okay, so that's why I say you save you mucking around. And then also, I think that's pretty much, isn't it? Yeah. And again, you've got to do, you know, just follow that algorithms that I've set out for you. With question, sorry, any questions about question 1? Sorry. Okay. Question 2, again, this is just a fancy way to write stuff down, but really, if you think about it, and I showed you last week, that really, if you think about that, if you forget about the equals 0 business, because as you know, that's the characteristic equation, and you equate the characteristic equation, go and find some information, as you know, find some roots. But the key thing, of course, is that if you think carefully about this, and it's got unity feedback, so, you know, really, that's what you're concentrating on. But I just want you to try and tell me why that's true. So if you have a look at last week's, hopefully it's a wink and a nod big enough to show you what I'm raving on about. But you'll be concentrating on that particular function anyway. Now, that's not giving too much away, because believe me, you've still got 19.8 pages to go. All right, now the root locus is always good fun. But again, as I say to you, I can tell you right up front now, it's not on the exam, yay, because we don't have 3.5 days for you to sit in the exam. You know, we don't have enough bedding nor enough food to feed you over that 3 days. So the reality is that, yeah, look, let's get stuck into it during the assignment, and then basically we'll leave it alone. So as you go through, just follow through the algorithm, and you'll find that, of course, that it's slightly different for the digital one than it is to the analog one, just of course. In actual fact, it's probably 18.5 pages for the digital one, because there's some stuff about no asymptotes or something. But again, just cycle through, and as you do it, as I say, eating an elephant, just do the bite sizes. And people have come back and sort of said, oh, I've done this bit. Oh, I'm having trouble with this bit, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the jury test, that's great fun. Hate, you know, oh, what do you mean I've got to do the Roth-Hurwitz one as well? Well, I've only asked you to do the Roth-Hurwitz one because I don't trust a jury one, and vice versa. So probably in real life, you'd only do one of them, but it's best. That's right. Have your medicine. That's right. Yes, that's right. So it's like children having medicine. So therefore, then if you do both, you'll be able to be, you know, you can at least make some judgment. And it is slightly different to the lecture one. It's there slightly different on purpose to make you obviously make a decision, but it's not terrible. And again, people have been checking as they've gone, so that's fine. Just keep doing that, and hopefully you'll come out the other side. All right. As I say, last week, look at last week's workshop as well. I've had a couple of conversations with people over this week, and I've said, did you have a look at the workshop from last week? Oh, no. And I said, well, they're very valuable as workshops, because sometimes there's some hints in there. So, and then one person had said that they'd seen it, well, possibly they were exaggerating, a dozen times and picked up some things, but had those couple of nuances. And that's fine. That's fine. And if you've been watching it a dozen times, oh boy, get a life, for God's sake. Watch it twice maybe, and then start asking questions. I'm sure you've got far more interesting things to do than watching me talking for 12 times. And as always, don't hesitate. Don't be embarrassed. It's not about that. It's about, I want to make sure that you understand it. That's the key thing. And of course, just trying to model the behavior as you go through. So hopefully you'll be able to see, oh, it kind of looks like that. And most times, as I say, it's like an algebra thing, or there can be some misunderstandings, and that's fine. That's the whole point of it is. The key thing, of course, is that it is week 10. I've got 2 other assignments to mark. I haven't started marking one of them yet. The other one I'm about, a quarter of the way through. So goodbye to my weekend, but that's okay. And then next week when you guys come in, that's fine. So I will get it back. And then some people have got some extensions for this unit. It's up to the 14 days. Otherwise, I would probably get it back to you within about a week and a half. So I know it's only a couple extra days, but the reality is that I'll just have to wait to that person to hand that in. And sometimes people hand them in early, but I will do my best to get close to the 14 days as possible. So if it's not the 14, it'll be the following Monday. But what I'm trying to say to you is that you'll get it back before the exam. There's no doubt about it. Even if I have to come and live in my office for a couple of days. But I generally, not generally, I always get it back for the exam. I want you to make sure you go back for the exam. And then in week 12, obviously, we'll have a discussion about some stuff. So next week, week 11, we've got whole new stuff again. And again, what you'll do, you'll show that I'll pinpoint some stuff for you. And again, we'll talk about, what you need to end in week 12. We'll help you really target in on what you need to concentrate on for the exam. And you'll find that over an 11-week period, pretty much you might, I'm guessing now, you might come down to, I think of at least 2 topics, like the block diagram one and the compensation one. We'll have a look at that. I might have given you a compensation question, but I better not say that I haven't. But as I say, instead of a whole 11 week, and you know yourself too, like the week 1, yeah, it's interesting. And I'll even tell you about the types of questions. So if you look on the Moodle site, I did tell you about the types of questions. So let's go and have a look at that for a minute. As I say, it's been there since the start. It's just not necessarily on your radar.
So you tend to have them up instead of practice exams. Is that right, Patrick?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Even the practice exam, as I say, people have been asking me for the practice exam for the other units, and I go, I have no idea where it is. Well, the past exam, I think, because they move it around. So, and we don't, when I log on to Moodle, I see Moodle how I see it. I can't see what yours looks like, so I have no idea to sort of say, hey, listen, go, oh, there it is there, So people, if you want to look at past exam papers, and again, remember that this is the second offering of this particular, they only put up one anyway, so it should be the last year's one. Because if you look for anything earlier than that, it's not going to have any digital stuff on it to the depth that we're doing at the moment. And that's not terrible. Another thing, of course, is that, as I said to you beforehand, there are 4 assignment questions. There are 11 weeks of lectures, so there's at least 2 problems per, at least, so there's 22 problems, plus the 4, that's 26. And then when you look at the tutorial problems, except for week 10, there's only 2 problems. The rest of them are 4. So look, if you can do those problems, I'm happy. You know, as long as you're comfortable with those, I'm not interested in you getting other things out of the textbook, etc., etc. So if you go to assessment and the examination, it's been there for ages, obviously. And we'll come back to this page on week 12 as well. But pretty much there are 4 questions. I'll check that again before then, but I haven't changed it. And it basically says to you, as long as you can do the lecture problems, tutorial problems, the assignment questions, then you should be okay. Should be okay. You will be okay. And then we'll talk a bit more about that. Again, obviously, welcome to life. Things happen on the examination day. If you're sick, unwell, or your family member is unwell, you know, don't drive yourself crazy. Go and put in an application for a deferred exam, that type of thing, for obvious reasons. Okay. Oh, and also just again, electrical's not so bad, but other disciplines have only just started to come back to exams. I can remember a couple of years ago in a residential school, somebody saying to me, "Oh, why is electrical so archaic and has exams?" And I said, "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" And basically, I teach a maintenance unit, and it's all assignment based. And please understand that, you know, exams are the best thing for us because we lock you in a room and we know that you've done it and all that kind of stuff. So it's again a risk management thing. Engineers Australia over the years, I mean, I've been involved with about 4 accreditations since I've been here, and that has always been a problem that they've had with distance education. You know, how do you know the person that submitted it actually did it and all that kind of stuff? So exams is one of those ways that we do that. And as I say, again, I hate exams, quite frankly. You know, exams are great because you can use the technique of, you know, learn a whole 12 weeks work overnight and basically walk in the exam and, you know, pass. Been there, done that. It's a strategy. Don't always work. Sometimes you crash out. So, you know, it's a strategy. But I'm just a great believer that exams shouldn't be any super surprise to you. Sure, there might be one that you think, oh, what's going on about here about? But generally, you should open up the exam paper and go, oh, yeah, that's okay. That's fine. But I don't believe in tricks. There's no, only little tricks, not big tricks. And as you see, you've done most of the pain. By the time you get to the exam, it should be just basically dotting the I's and crossing the T's to say, hey, listen, is it making sense to you? And testing some of the basics, the fundamentals underneath. And the assignments and the other stuff should be pushing out you know, all the testy stuff, if you like. All right, okay. Any questions?
Patrick, just confirming that's an unrestricted open book exam, is that right?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, and the whole programmable calculator thing, that's all stands, I understand, like standard exam technique or expectations.
That's
yep.
Right.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you.
You're right. And as you well know, you know, you can turn up with literally a wheelbarrow of stuff and literally it's a waste of time. So, you know, it's another type of exam that you've got to figure out what you need to bring as well. Again, you know, the reality is that sometimes you can just put your finger on something and it's very handy to have. So you can ask some questions about that next week if there's any advice that you know you want to seek from that too. Yeah, cool. All right, anything else? All right. Okay, well, if you're happy, I'm happy to let you go and run free and find something far more interesting to do this morning. I've got marking to do, so that's very interesting.
I have no idea where you get this idea we have a life during semester, Patrick. I really don't.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to instill in you is that fight as hard as you can to have even like a half a day off, even if it's just for yourself, where you go, you know what, those kids, that partner, oh, yes, dear, yes, I have to be at university today. just find something to indulge yourself with, as I say, whether it's a guilty pleasure of walking around a shopping center or, you know, just going for a walk. You just, you know, fight back to find something for yourself. And I know perhaps more mature people might appreciate it more than some of our other people coming through. But you know, try and find something for yourself, seriously, because you You will be rewarded. And you all know sometimes too, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're thinking, oh, you know, I should just go to bed. Sometimes just go to bed. Seriously, believe me, it'll still be there in the morning. But sometimes just sometimes yourself, it'll give you a break. It just, you know, sometimes I know myself, when, like even with this marking, you know, I'll be marking, and because I want to obviously have standard practice, you know, you'll get into the first 5 and you'll go, oh, tweak that, and then you get into the number 15th one and you go, oh yeah, actually that's right. So then you think to yourself, you know, that other 15, yeah, I'm going to have to cycle back through them and just think, didn't they? Oh, hang on a minute. And sometimes you miss it, of course, and that's fine. But, so, you know, find some time for yourself. Even if you have to yell at someone to say, go away, I need a moment to myself. Believe me, find it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, take care, be safe, and as always, I'm only an email or a call away, but don't hesitate. Please don't hesitate. We want you to do the best you can under all circumstances. And as I say, sometimes I know, no, I've been there, done that. I know exactly. Hopefully you understand I'm a veteran. I know exactly what, you know, I've got the wounds, I've got the artificial limbs, I know exactly, you know, I've got the feeling, I know where you are. It's a war zone and it is hard. Sometimes, you know, it's hard. It doesn't always have to be that hard, and hopefully you understand that. I'm trying to make it so it's not that hard. I'll challenge you, but we'll get you there. All right, we want to get you there. Get you home. And it's week 10. Only 2 more to go.
Can't wait. No worries. All right, thanks very much, Patrick.
Thanks, Bradley. Thanks for that.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cam.
Bye. Bye.
Take care. All the best.